This is the Fantasy Football Game Plan, where we talk about fantasy football and the NFL.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Pretty exhausted after watching all those games yesterday.
Exhausted.
Yeah, well, as a Lions fan, you must be more exhausted than me.
Oh, come on.
That was terrible.
Yeah, I was watching the whole thing, and then I cracked a beer.
Good idea.
And then it was just pretty much that was how I just dealt with it. I just cracked a beer. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it wasn't that bad.
Obviously, the clock ran out on Baltimore, and then they grounded the ball. So they actually committed 2 penalties on one play, weren't called for it, and then kicked a 66-yarder that went off the crossbar and then in. Ridiculous.
Don't worry, the NFL would just write Detroit Lions organization an apology letter for screwing up, and that should take care of the W&L column.
Right. That'll fix everything. I was laughing because I was thinking about the guy in your fantasy league that has all Chiefs. I'd like to know how he's doing.
So I played that guy in my league.
Okay.
And yes, and it wasn't close because Tyreek Hill could not catch a ball, which was good on my part.
Right, and he turned it over.
Yeah, and then they shut out Kelsey. They had him double teamed. Mahomes did put up some good numbers, though. However, he did throw some interceptions, and maybe people understand the game book now and how to defend them. But Tyreek Hill kind of did garbage. A couple of receivers did garbage this week.
Yeah.
Like Hollywood Brown against the Lions. That's the game that I was watching in the morning.
Yeah.
3 passes, I think. 1 before half, 1 after half, and then another one during the game too. So, maybe they'll throw more to Watkins because he seemed to come up with the clutch play at the end of the game for whatever, like a 35er. So maybe they changed their strategy. I also talked about Brown last week and saying that I didn't really like him as a receiver, but he could have just had an off game.
Yeah, well, he just dropped a lot of balls. I think you're right. I think teams have figured out a methodology for playing the Chiefs that works quite well because they love to be in tight ball games. But if you keep your safeties back, make them run, which they don't like to do, and they cough it up when they run, then you stop those big plays from happening. We're not seeing Kansas City with the big plays other than like Kelsey running a screen for 80-yard touchdown. But we're not seeing big plays from Kansas City this year the way we have in the past. So I think you're right. I think people have got the formula now, and Mahomes is so confident. He'll just run around. He'll just throw it up. He'll just toss it up in the air, expecting his guys to come down with it. And it did work a couple weeks ago. Tyreek Hill caught a big one, but it's not going to work a lot. It's not going to work all the time. And it should be interesting this year. They're in the last place in their division, which is really funny, I think.
It also, to your point there, the last play of the game, he did that same throw it up in the air pass and into triple coverage. So, maybe he is a little bit too cocky and thinks that, if he throws it, someone will catch it. It's not the field of dreams out here. It's football.
Yeah, someone will catch it, but they might have a different jersey on than him.
Different helmet for sure,
though. So, fantasy-wise, there's some stuff going on with the injuries that I think are going to weigh in on this week.
Every week, it's always injuries. Who blew their ACL? Who tore a hamstring? Who had high ankle problem?
Yeah.
So where are we going to start with? Are we going to start with CMC?
Yeah.
Going out with in the first half of Thursday's game?
That's a great place to start. It was the first injury of the week, and it's huge. And apparently it's not as bad as it looked initially. Like he was going to not be around for a few weeks, but now they're just saying it's week to week. He's not going on IR. Also, another hammy, AJ Brown on Tennessee.
Okay, so hold on a second. So
Mhm.
if you don't go on IR, if you go on IR, it's 3 weeks, right?
At least,
Minimum?
yes. Yes.
Minimum. That's why they're not putting him on IR.
Right. Right. So I don't know about this week, but probably won't be much longer than this week that he won't be available. And we'll talk about who to pick up there in a sec. I just wanted to cover some the main injuries. Chris Carson,
Oh,
hammy.
AJ Brown, you're talking about AJ
Yeah,
Brown.
yeah,
Yes, AJ Brown hurt himself. Yes.
yeah. So he pulled a hammy. Christian McCaffrey pulled a hammy. Chris Carson also pulled a hammy. And then what happened to Cortland Sutton? You've got him, right? So you're probably keeping track of that.
Nothing. They just blew out their team 26-0. So they just weren't passing the ball. Bridgewater didn't even throw a touchdown.
You didn't have to.
He didn't have to. They didn't have to pass. So he's coming off an injury from last year. So what I read this morning was that they were just being very conservative of how many touches people got. I think he caught 4 for 4 or 5 for 5 for, like 50 yards or something. And then they just,
Okay.
if you don't need to use them, don't use them.
Okay, that's good news. Why put him at risk further? That's just smart management, game management, injury management.
Player management. Now,
yeah.
Can we still talk about Denver? Because how about that defense?
Yeah, great defense. Yeah.
Wow. They put up 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 0 points, scored first shutout of the year.
Yeah. Even without Chubb, as far as I know, Chubb wasn't on the field. They didn't need him.
Player management.
Yeah. And I mean, they're just playing a bad team. The Jets just look really bad and they can't do very much. And it's really sad to watch. Bad football. Bad football. Speaking of bad football, before we move on to waiver pickups, I just wanted to say that if you want to see some bad football, you can watch Pittsburgh. I can't believe what's happened to them. I don't know how they beat Buffalo. Well, I guess they had Watt that helped, but boy, are they hard to watch right now.
Well, if you have Harris as your running back,
yeah,
Ben can't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage.
19 times he threw to the running back. 19 targets.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he can't throw the ball further than 7 yards.
Yeah,
the line of scrimmage. So what's going on in Pittsburgh? And when and all the receivers went out. Juju Smith went out. Here's another injury.
Yep.
Johnson was out last week, which we talked about a little bit too, with his thigh at the end of the game on a garbage play. And they have other receivers. Claypool got injured as well too. So their top 3, they're big line. I don't know what's going on with that team. It's a disaster right now. But they've still got to play. It's just like the Jets. They still got to play. But they always kind of come through Pittsburgh. So they kind of, it might be hard to watch, but they're still going to put points on the board. But against Cincinnati, they were at 0 points for the longest time. It wasn't until the team got tired, I think, that Pittsburgh was able to get some points in the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah. And similarly, you were so right about Justin Fields when I was sort of pushing for him last week. I don't think it's his fault. I think he's a good player, but I think he's been set up to fail with that team, with that offense. I heard Myles Garrett from the Browns joking around about how easy it was because they always knew where he was going to be in the pocket. It's not like they tried to move him around or do anything to help him. They just had him drop back the same depth every time, and Garrett just got to tee off on him all day.
So, Patrick Mahomes sat behind Smith for 1 year, came out in 1 quarter at the final game, and then started the next season. He learned probably so much during that time about how the NFL works. I was thinking about this today. about the NFL rookies that are, starting. There's a lot of starting NFL rookies right now in the league, and like, are these guys ready to play? And it's just like you said, like maybe Fields is set up to fail. I think Chicago has like a great players that can make great offense, but do they have that coaching mentality to be able to, progress a player into the next level? And maybe that's where they're lacking, because it's not like Fields isn't talented enough, but
Yeah.
except for I just saw him sitting on the bench in a recap of being like just devastated. Like he's already it's already in his head.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Poor Mitchell Trubisky. He probably would have been a good player had he gone to a different team. Fields is now going to suffer the same fate, it looks like. I don't think they know what they're doing in Chicago. They've got James Robinson on their team, and he's just invisible. He's a great receiver, and they just can't find a way to get him the ball.
Trubisky did last year a bunch of times.
Yeah, Trubisky threw to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson. Sorry, Allen Robinson. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Bears are hard to watch, and I guess we should be happy that Andy Dalton's going to go back in when he's healthy, because that way Justin Fields might not get too much more psychological damage done to him before he has to play.
Cleo Mack actually got a little bit injured too.
Right. So we were talking about Justin Fields last week as a possible QB pickup. I thought it was a better idea than you did. You were right. I'm looking ahead this week. I made a list, and it's a very short list. I don't know about your league, but in my league, all the quarterbacks are taken. I've got a guy who's got 3 quarterbacks, including Kirk Cousins on his bench, who's just lighting it up this year. My short list, I've got, again, Taylor Heineke. He seems to be not owned in a lot of leagues. He didn't play great, but he played okay if you're desperate. And then with the Tua injury, Jacoby Brissett actually was not bad. And he threw the ball to Mike Gesicki 12 times. So there's some tight end value there. If Jacoby Brissett is playing, you can maybe get a stack there if both those guys are available.
Last week, you had no confidence in Brissett. Now you're thinking someone could pick him up. Yeah, it's good. He's throwing the ball. So if you need a quarterback and you need somebody on your bench because you're coming into a bye week, but he'll be there, so you can pick him up at any time. The only one person I would probably try and get is Sam Darnold, not being probably picked up in many as well too. So I know we talked about him last week too, but
yeah, and you're right, and it was a great idea on your part. I just think after that nationally televised game where everybody was just watching that one game, people probably are racing to pick him up now. I don't know if he'll still be available, but if he is, you're right, grab him. And for some reason, Jimmy Garoppolo's not owned in my league and in quite a few leagues. He's not a great pickup, but he's okay. And the Niners are a decent team. So I don't have many more suggestions on the quarterback side for this week, other than, you're right. Darnold would be great. If you can get Darnold, go get him.
So maybe the same list as last week, scrapping Fields.
Yeah, with the exception of Brissett, because he actually looked, I thought he looked better than Tua. So
he's had more experience in football games. He's completed a game. Tua's completed maybe 4 games in his whole NFL career. Like complete games.
Yeah.
No,
So for running backs, really weird. The Las Vegas Raiders picked up Peyton Barber.
I know.
Guy that I was playing had him, and I did not think much of that. I was worried about Jonathan Taylor from the Colts. The guy that I was playing had him as his 1 back, and his 2 back was Peyton Barber. And I thought, what? And Peyton Barber went crazy, 111 yards, 3 catches for 31 yards, a touchdown. Raiders played in overtime again, extra snaps, and Jonathan Taylor of the Colts did nothing. Naheem Hines is maybe a waiver pickup for this week for the Colts because seems like they're splitting time now.
Yeah, in my league, all available running backs are snagged. There's no running backs available.
Okay,
But
I'm going to throw
those
some
guys you're mentioning are all gone within the time that they're even traded to the next team.
Okay, I'm going to throw out some names and tell me if you think they're available or not in your league. We talked about San Francisco running backs. Who is the big star this week? Kyle Juszczyk.
I don't care about San Francisco.
Okay, we'll move on. So Malcolm Brown for Miami, not a bad game. 4.4 yards a carry, got a touchdown. So he's sort of a goal line guy, right? And we're talking about like if you're desperate. I mean, great. I have Cook. I don't have Madison. I couldn't play him. So obviously Alexander Madison was on our list last week. He was a great play. So good job by us. These are just I'm just talking about you're saying that there's the running backs are mostly gone. So I'm like scouring the waiver wire for names. And so Malcolm Brown was one. Also, Chris Carson got injured. So you got three guys you can look at: Alex Collins, Travis Homer, and DJ Dallas. If Carson doesn't play, pick one of those guys, maybe Alex Collins, I would suggest maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, Collins got some reps last year, and then same with that Dallas guy got some reps as well too. So it's going to be split backfield, and who's probably hot is going to get it. I would say wait one more week to see what happens there, because I think unless you have an insider of Pete Carroll, you know what he's thinking, then
yeah,
it'd be pretty hard to go on there. Gio Bernard.
Gio Bernard.
If he's not picked up, he did some damage.
He's injured.
He did get injured in the last play. That is right.
Yeah. And I think Tampa Bay, he's going to be the back they're going to throw to when they're behind, but I feel like Tampa Bay is not going to be behind a lot. And he's injured. I think you're right. Like maybe stash that guy, keep your eye on him. But I think it's game script for him because he's not really a running back. He's a pass catching third down back.
That's right. And then there's that Hubbard.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard will be big for Carolina, right? Because like you were saying, McCaffrey's out. So this guy, Chuba Hubbard, will probably start this week. So he'd be a huge guy to pick up.
Yeah, because Mike Davis is not around. Mike Davis picked up the workload last year. This guy's going to pick up the workload this year, right?
Yeah. Mike Davis is busy giving his workload away to Cordarrelle Patterson. We suggested last week that Patterson would be a good pickup. He was. They're now splitting time. I would say even Patterson's sort of the main back there now. So good job by us.
So I did an experiment this week and I picked him up, put him on my bench. But what was really cool is that I am able to move this player around. If I want him in the wide receiver spot, he goes in the wide receiver spot. If I want him as a running back, I can put him in the running back. And then I also have the option to put him in a flex. He's like a Hill. Remember Tyreek Hill, the quarterback?
Yep.
You could put him as wide receiver, running back. He's like the ultimate flex player in fantasy. So
yeah,
for that reason alone, his stock value is massive because I have to start 3 wide receivers, but technically now I could have 4 wide receivers with him on in a PPR and a flex.
Nice. Fantasy gold.
So it really is. If there's a player that doesn't have anything as a designated position and is flex between 2 positions,
yeah,
your fantasy league allows you to put him in any category you want.
Yeah. Yeah. So you brought up a good point with Taysom Hill because he is still doing that thing where he gets to go in the red zone, which robs Kamara and robs Jameis Winston and anybody else on that team who might hope to score touchdowns. And, he's not a startable guy, Taysom Hill, but he's just like He's just a goal line thief. Very frustrating. That team, New Orleans, is very frustrating for fantasy. I find I'm just staying away.
Yeah, I think last week I told you I don't know any wide receivers on their team, and no wide receivers showed up this week either. So it's still a crapshoot to say who's touching the ball on that team.
Yeah, Callaway, I think, caught a touchdown this week, but he's done nothing so far this year. So it's just really inconsistent. For another running back, James Conner from the Cardinals got 2 touchdowns. He's their goal line back.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised that Chase Edmonds did not play. Like, he just didn't seem to play in the second half. Like, what is wrong with him? Is it maybe you're just suggesting that goal line comes in and
he's not in the goal line package, so he's the pass catching running back, and then James Conner is the short running back. I mean, unless of course Kyler runs it in himself, but he needs someone to play fake it to before he runs it in himself, and then every once in a while he's going to give it to Conner. So that's just something of note. I'm not saying he's a great player to add, but if you're super desperate for a running back, there's a guy to look at there. And then I wanted to talk to you about Zach Moss, because I know you're a Singletary guy, and Singletary was looking so good. And now they've gone back to favoring Zach Moss, especially in the red zone.
Yeah. Well, I guess when it comes with Buffalo, and they have so many guys touching, the ball, it depends on whoever is open or on the field. Like, they have the tight end that you mentioned last week that was catching more touchdown passes this week. They have
Dawson Knox. Yep. Good job by us. He was our only suggestion for tight ends last week, and he came through. So Emmanuel Sanders played this week, and he caught 2 touchdown passes. I thought he was Diggs, and I had to look at his number 1. And if I'm a Diggs owner, I'd be so choked, because those used to be Diggs touchdowns. But now you got Gabriel Davis, you've got Emmanuel Sanders, you've got Dawson Knox, and Zach Moss caught a touchdown. So he's spreading the ball around like crazy. So Diggs owners, I guess, would be pretty choked. But if you need a receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, I guess we're going to have to see more of a sample size, but he looks pretty damn good.
Josh Allen scored 4 touchdowns, probably number 1 fantasy quarterback in the league. And this week coming out, he's hot. He was playing a good team too. Washington is not a bad team, and he was able to get through to their DBs. So the pass rush wasn't costing any interceptions. So their offensive line is strong, and go Buffalo, go.
Yeah, they're just loaded. The team's just loaded. The best guy to have is Josh Allen, because he's spreading it around. He can even run it in if you want.
If you were lucky in your draft lineup pick, like in the snake or ladder, when I'm in, you would have picked him up in an early round. He was going for at least number 2 or 3 this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few teams like that. We talked a bit about this last week. AJ Green caught another touchdown. The Cardinals drive me nuts, because they've got Hopkins, but I mean, they're spreading it around too. We mentioned Connor scoring twice. It's really hard to know unless you got Kyler Murray. I mean, is AJ Green the real thing? Is 2 weeks in a row now? He caught 5 balls. Sorry, I said he scored a touchdown. I don't think he did. He caught 5 balls for 112 yards. He had 11.2 fantasy points in standard scoring, so more in PPR. And he's featured in that offense, it seems like, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he just had a crappy 2 years in Cincinnati. He's just coming back to who he was many, many years ago. It's not like he's a talented receiver. That's great. If you have him or you don't have him, trade for him, get him. But Murray is doing what he wants to do. He's just running around throwing the ball to, if it's Kirk this week, or if it's, whoever else we were talking about last week that was catching on to more.
Yeah, we had,
it doesn't matter. He's just running around, and if the guys are adapting to his scramble, Like if they're on the far side of the field and they're coming closer, or if they're on the near side of the field running further, making themselves open, he's finding them and throwing them, and he's accurate, and he's throwing for huge numbers.
Yeah.
He's throwing like his arm strength is crazy.
Yeah, no, he's a great fantasy quarterback, Kyler Murray. I mean, whoever has him is extremely happy with him. I'm really surprised at how good David Carr has been, and he's doing the same thing. He's spreading it around. I was looking at Hunter Renfrow, and we've talked about this in the offseason. There's always so many receivers. And, Bryan Edwards, we talked a bit about him last week, still available. He had 89 yards, 5 targets. Hunter Renfrow, 77 yards, a touchdown. I mean, these are all viable guys. If you're desperate, the Raiders have all kinds of players you can plug in.
The bonus with the Raiders is that they're going into extra innings.
Yeah, they always play an extra quarter. So there's extra fantasy points. I know.
You're going to get a couple more touches when you're playing a little bit longer of a football game.
Okay. So what we talked a bit about Denver before, and you have Sutton. So Tim Patrick's pretty consistently getting targets, 5 this week, 98 yards. So 10, at least 10 points for fantasy, which is what you want from each guy, at least 10 points. He's been pretty consistent. I didn't think he would be such a big piece for Denver. Noah Fant's not doing as much as I thought he would, and this guy seems to be stealing a lot of grabs.
If you have a flex spot, put him in there. I wouldn't put him in as my 1 or 2, though.
No, but there's always receivers that you can play, which is why it's a great idea to not spend too much money on receivers if you can help it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the position that I'm always combing the waiver wire for, I got a big one for this week. We talked about Dawson Knox last week. That paid off. So you know who I'm going to say? Tyler Conklin, Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is hot. He targeted him 8 times. He caught 7 balls, Conklin did, for 70 yards. He scored a touchdown. 13 fantasy points in my league, but more for PPR or half PPR.
20.
Okay. So, wow. That's huge for, that tight end position is so hard to get a guy. And I think that he's going to be filling in for quite a while because Irv Smith has been out, I don't know how long. I think he's on IR.
But they have to replace Rudolph. So it just sort of makes sense that, he likes his running back, his tight ends.
Yeah.
Cousins. And so, Rudolph is gone. So that's your man right there. He's definitely got it. He's a must-reach player.
Yeah. Well, Rudolph, Kirk Cousins went to him a lot. And then Irv Smith was supposed to be taken over that spot, and he got hurt. So it took them a while to find a guy because they traded for this guy, Ty Conklin. So now he's been with the team for a couple of weeks. He's got the offense down. He's on the field a lot. And yeah, you're right. Cousins likes to throw to the tight end, and this is the guy. So go and get Tyler Conklin if you're struggling for a tight end. Or maybe you can get Gesicki, like we talked about. All of a sudden, he's getting a huge target share from Jacoby Brissett.
If you have the space, I don't have space right now. So that's my biggest problem is that, it's all about space. And there's only so many people can you have on your bench, but depending on if you're in 12-man league, these guys are definitely people you need to snag because they're not going to be sitting there week after week. And I truly believe that Gesicki is someone that needs to be picked up if you don't have a confidence tight end that you're starting. Like, are you still starting
Tyler Higbee?
Yeah.
And I was going to ditch Gesicki and go and get Dawson Knox. But I thought when I saw Brissett was coming in, I thought, well, let me see how Brissett is with Gesicki because I did draft him. I am in a keeper league. and I got him for $1 or $2. So if he turns out to be an asset, he's worth, holding on to rather than just sort of throwing him out and going and making a desperate play for somebody else. So now that was a good move on my part because Tyler Higbee scored a touchdown, had a great game. I won my fantasy league. I'm 3-0. I'm very happy I won this in my league. And it was a large part due to Higbee, who's been really inconsistent. You said he would be good. You were right. So thanks for that. And I think Conklin is a good grab. Higbee's a tight end. So, there's nobody else on the Rams that plays tight end or any kind of significant tight end role.
Well, I can tell you this, that he's on the field 92% of the time if he's blocking or running a pass play. So
yeah,
he's on the field. He's not on the bench.
Yeah, and they had plays designed for him specifically, including the touchdown that he scored. So that gives me hope for Tyler Higbee. I'm going to hold off on Gesicki for another week, but I've got an eyeball on Tyler Conklin, definitely.
Okay. You have an empty tight end. You have garbage out there. You don't have any tight end right now. Who do you pick up? Conklin or Knox?
I would say Conklin because he gets a massive target share. That offense, both of them are good, actually. I don't think you can lose, but I think
that's the answer then. Whatever. Let's just move on.
Those are your two guys.
Okay.
Those are the only tight ends I'm looking at for this week. So Dawson Knox makes the list again, and then Tyler Conklin again. Or Tyler Conklin, is somebody to go for. We're not going to talk about kickers because you don't like to, and one broke your heart with the Lions game.
No, but the other one broke my heart too because he tried a 68er.
And then it got returned for a touchdown.
Yeah, against another. Yeah, but all I'm saying, let's just move on from kickers. Just pick up Koo or Gay or I don't know. Whoever.
Just get a kicker. Just have a kicker. That's it.
Just make sure when you're looking at who's productive in kicking, if you have a kicker that's underneath the 12 mark, just upgrade to the best kicker. Because really that's the only strategy you really have. You'd be like, oh, I really like Justin Tucker. He's my number. But if he's not in the top 10, then, and he's sitting at the top 17, and there's all these other guys you don't even know whose names they are on top of him, just pick the best man up every week. Just pick the best kicker up.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah. Stream your kicker.
Yep. That's what we should do. Stream kickers.
Well, in my league, you only get so many waiver picks per season. We've increased it from 10 to 20 because of COVID. So you got to pick a kicker and sort of stick with them for the most part in my league. You do need to have more than one because of the bye week, but you don't have to have more than one every week.
Well, that's good that at least you can drop somebody once and pick them up again.
Right. Okay.
Defense? Talking about defense, Carolina?
Yeah, if you can.
They're okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they're gone by now, but I played the Tampa defense last weekend against the Rams, and that didn't work out so well for me. 0. They got me 0.
Defense is tough. Still needs to be some time. You never know.
Yeah, well, they weren't playing JPP, and so they weren't pressuring the quarterback, and it made a big difference to that defense. And they got a lot of injuries on the back end right now, too.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my availability and what's taken and what's not really taken. And I guess Arizona is the very top one grab, if it's not already grabbed.
And talking about streaming, play anybody who's facing the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that Denver's good, but I think that was a case of Denver is good, but the Jets are just really bad.
Imagine that's your strategy. You just go through the whole, who's playing the Jets? If their defense, if someone doesn't have New England or Miami or Buffalo, then you can just pick them up.
It kind of feels like it's that way every year, doesn't it?
Yeah. But New England and Buffalo are definitely two defenses that are probably already on someone's roster. So
right.
And then Miami, if you don't have them, they're a good option too, because I think they're like right now, like what, 22 games with a takeaway. Like
they cause turnovers. Yeah, I think the Minnesota defense is starting to come together too. So they're probably available in a lot of leagues. So have a look at that.
Yeah, defensive head coach. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, well, enjoy your night and good luck in week 4.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks for watching the Fantasy Football Game Plan podcast. Need coaching on your lineup? Drop us a line and we'll discuss your dilemma.